So we've come to our final episode for the year, for the Entrepreneur Corner. It's been an amazing ride. We've learned a lot. We've unpacked a lot of stuff. Things like HR, admin, how to manage your finances. And here we are.
Here we are.
Wow.
Thank you. It's been a wonderful opportunity for me as well.
Yeah. So today, as we wrap up the year, of course, we obviously going to reflect on all that I've just mentioned now in terms of the planning for the year and the topics that we've touched on, but also in preparation for the new year, which is coming. So what should entrepreneurs do?
Well, I think if we look at everything that we've covered so far, and we've really been across the whole sort of spectrum of business operations, from sales and marketing to HR to finance to planning to looking at a lot of personal development stuff, which, as you know, is quite a big part of the work that I do and I try and do with my clients.
Yes.
I think that a nice way to maybe crystallize and summarize what we've covered and also use it in a way that people watching can actually implement in their businesses is to end the year and start the new year with a very simple planning exercise that I call stop, start and continue.
Yeah.
So are you comfortable that we look at this little tool and share it with the entrepreneurs?
Yes.
Essentially what stop, start, continue entails, and interestingly it's not only used in entrepreneurial sort of focus and development, but it's also used a lot in HR.
Yeah.
When people do performance reviews for staff, they often use the stop, start, continue method in order to help that employee improve in their position.
Yeah.
And the way it works is, the way I like to work it with my clients is, I ask them to take 5 elements in their business that they need to, or 5 actions or behaviors that they need to stop doing,
Okay.
5 actions or behaviors that they believe they need to start doing, and 5 actions or behaviors that they feel that they need to continue doing, that they're currently doing well.
Yeah.
Write those down on a piece of paper and really think about them. Maybe you can actually even put more than 5 down if you feel like you're on a bit of a roll and there's a whole host of things normally that we need to stop doing, like stop underquoting or stop under promising and etc. Stop taking on work that you can't deliver on time, etc. I think as entrepreneurs we often find that we have a lot of things we feel like we should stop doing.
Yeah.
Whether that I would always agree with that, I'm not actually sure, but certainly in my experience, when people have done this exercise, they end up with a long list of stops,
Yeah.
a small list of starts, and kind of a medium list of continues.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But what I would suggest people do then is that they actually crystallize that into 4, maybe 5 elements that they can actually start working on immediately as the new year starts.
I think the key is how do they identify that these are working? As you've mentioned, that they always have a long list of stops, and I think maybe it's got to do with confidence issues, or because people want to be perfect in what they do, so they tend to undervalue or what they're doing well, because they always want to improve, do better, do well. So how do they identify, accurately what they're doing well and what they're not doing well?
What's quite interesting is that I think a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs have an idea of where their blind spots and their weak spots are.
Okay.
But they don't always sort of crystallize them in a sufficient way to actually act on them. So like, I've always been bad at finances, but like whatever, the business is carrying on and it seems to be doing okay, so it's not a huge issue. But I think that certainly emotionally and intellectually, most entrepreneurs know what they're good at and what they're not so good at.
Yes.
What they don't know is how to sort of put that into an action plan or a kind of a to-do list to actually move beyond that. And that's where this exercise can be quite useful.
So it helps with implementation.
Well, once it kind of is in black and white, there's no hiding from it.
Okay.
So let's look at an example where you're working on your stop list. And let's pretend that you're someone who is a yes man or a yes woman, which is great. But you're always saying yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's to your own detriment. So, you know, a client posts an unreasonable deadline on you and you go, yes, sure.
Yes.
So one of the stops there might be, you know, stop taking on work that I cannot complete on time. Because every time I do that as an individual, it has a ripple effect that causes issues with other clients, with other jobs,
Yeah.
etc. And I think this is a big one for a lot of entrepreneurs. We never want to say no. And I totally get that. You know, who wants to turn business away?
Of course.
But if you're in a scenario where you're actually saying yes to everybody and then actually letting people down as a result, rather say no. So in that case, on your stop list would be stop taking on work that I cannot deliver on time.
Yes.
Stop, you know, making promises that I cannot keep. And so you would go on through the kind of areas that you feel like are your weak points on your stop list. It might be things like stop starting work without getting a deposit.
Okay.
Another vintage one for entrepreneurs. You know, we want to get going, there's time pressure, we jump in and then suddenly like the job's finished and we're chasing money.
Yeah.
Who wants to chase money? Get a deposit. Don't deliver the product or the order or the service until the balance of payment has been received. So little things like that, you know. Stop trying to do everything myself. We spoke about delegating recently.
Yes,
That's a
yes.
big one. And then when it comes to the start list, this would be things like, you know, where you feel like there's potential to improve systems. So for example, it might be start building up a database of all my customers' contact details.
Yes.
Start putting out monthly communications with my customers, develop a CRM system, start implementing a more effective financial management system. So these are all things that you recognize are important in the business, but you haven't necessarily had the time or the resources to actually get them done. And again, by writing them on your list, it puts them in black and white and there's nowhere really to hide except from yourself.
Yes. Just in closing, how important it is or is it to be specific? For example, you mentioned that an entrepreneur may say, okay, I need to manage my finances better. But what does that mean exactly? And how important is it to specify so that you're dealing with the problem directly instead of just generalizing? Otherwise, you don't get to tackle it properly.
That's a very good question. So, yeah, because, you know, if something's too broad or too general, it never really gets done, does it?
Yeah.
And the way this exercise would work and the way I would facilitate this exercise, for example, in a business, which I've done on several occasions where I've actually sat with the team and the staff and we've gone through the stop, start, continue process, is once you kind of, let's say you put something quite broad, like start, you know, being more conscious of my financial management. Once you've sort of identified your 4 or 5 very key areas that need to be focused on, that need to be stopped, started and continued, you would then, once you've agreed on those, you would then break them down into bite-sized chunks. So if one of yours was start being more effective with financial management, and you accept that that's one of the areas that you're going to tackle in the new year as part of your growth,
Yes.
You would break that down into actual, what we look at KPIs, key performance indicators, and that would be things like appoint an accountant, implement a financial management system like Sage or Pastel, open up a separate business bank account. So you would have the actual specific actions that relate to that stop
Topic.
Behavior
With them.
in order to allow you to have some very tangible stuff
Yes.
that you can tackle. Because that's really the key to success in any strategic planning exercise, is that you actually are able to have kind of bite-sized actions that ideally cascade on one another. So you do the one and it allows you to then conquer the next one and so on.